The Stone Age didn't end for a lack of stones, and the Oil Age will end long before the world runs out of oil. What if every crypto investor was wrong?
And now moving to Asia, Bhutan, the Himalayan kingdom known for prioritizing happiness over wealth, has quietly emerged as a major player in the cryptocurrency world. With $780 million worth of Bitcoin, which is nearly a third of its GDP.
You may remember that a while back, Bhutan was a customer of Ripple. What they were doing was they were creating their own central bank digital currency on a private version of the XRP ledger.
Bhutan has become the fourth largest government holder of Bitcoin. Now, what's fueling the country's ambitions to become a leader in green crypto mining? Here's our report with answers.
It's no secret that we're in the late stages of a debt cycle. We're seeing the writing on the wall. Bhutan's seeing the writing on the wall. And instead of investing in treasuries that are yielding 5-6%, what they decided to do was to buy Bitcoin mining equipment. Now, think about that. 5-6%. So they think they're going to outperform treasuries that are 5-6% and instead do mining, and they think it's going to be safer than actually holding treasuries.
Nestled in the Himalayas, Bhutan, a tiny Buddhist kingdom with fewer than 900,000 people, has emerged as an unexpected yet powerful player in the world of cryptocurrency. Known for its serene landscapes, happiness-centric philosophy, and commitment to sustainability, Bhutan has quietly amassed a significant treasure. Over 13,000 Bitcoin worth approximately $780 million. For a country with a GDP of just under $3 billion, this is a staggering sum, making Bhutan the fourth largest government holder of Bitcoin globally. The Himalayan kingdom is only behind the United States, China, and the United Kingdom as it overtook El Salvador, Ukraine, and Germany.
In the 1970s, we were able to get Saudi Arabia as well as other oil-producing nations to price the crude oil in U.S. dollars. This forced every country in the world to sell their goods and services for dollars in order to purchase energy from Saudi Arabia. You can boil every good and service down to how much energy was expelled to create whatever the good or service is. When Russia attacked the Ukraine, what happened was the U.S. decided to sanction Russia, and this caused ripple effects to happen in the global energy trade. Russia is not just one of the largest producers of crude oil, but they also produce uranium. They're large nat gas suppliers. They supply a lot of energy to the world. And once we sanctioned Russia, we saw CPI shoot to its all-time high. There have been very little advancements of energy production over the years. There has been innovation on how to use energy, but very little advancements on how to produce energy.
Unlike the United States and China, which gained their cryptocurrency through seizures and legal battles, Bhutan took a more proactive approach by investing directly in Bitcoin mining. And the nation's journey into the digital asset world has been led by its state-owned investment arm, Druk Holdings.
A lot of countries have sovereign investment funds, and what that means is the country has their own investments on behalf of the people. Bhutan decided to buy Bitcoin mining equipment as an investment, and they were able to finance this through the Asian Development Bank. The Asian Development Bank is very similar to the IMF. The IMF is made up of G7, G20 countries as shareholders, and they give out loans to underdeveloped nations. The Asian Development Bank is very similar, except for the largest shareholder is China. China is supposed to have an anti-crypto stance, but the most amount of miners, Bitcoin miners, are in China today.
Now, even though Bitcoin, the world's first decentralized digital currency, was created in 2009, it has since evolved from a fringe internet experiment into a globally recognized financial asset. And what makes Bitcoin unique is its limited supply and its decentralized nature, operating outside the control of any central bank. While on the other hand, mining Bitcoin involves solving complex mathematical problems to validate transactions on the blockchain, a process that consumes significant energy but offers lucrative rewards in Bitcoin currency.
Bitcoin miners are at a race. They're trying to crack a code first, and this, over time, becomes more and more complex. The code becomes more and more complex, and it takes more and more energy in order to crack the code. The race to an energy surplus is an absolute necessity considering the new technologies that are entering the arena. Just artificial intelligence is supposed to use 2x more energy than we produce today for the next couple of years. For AI to excel, it's going to require more energy. As sovereigns enter this arena, we're going to see almost a cold war of energy production. Globally, our energy appetite is increasing with technology, with AI. It's going to increase by exponents, and the fruits of AI as well as other technology will also increase by exponent.
Bhutan's decision to mine Bitcoin rather than purchase it directly aligns with its broader strategy to diversify revenue streams. The country's Bitcoin mining activities have been fueled by its abundant hydropower resources, making Bhutan one of the most eco-friendly crypto miners in the world.
The price of goods and services translates to the amount of energy consumed to create the good or service. If you built a turbine in the middle of the ocean that was harnessing energy, you would need a large amount of money to not only build a turbine, but to have a wire that goes from the middle of the ocean all the way back to the mainland and then connect into the grid, plug into the grid. And it really doesn't make much sense from an economic standpoint. But if you had a turbine in the middle of the ocean harnessing energy from waves, and you use that energy to mine Bitcoin with Starlink satellite, well, then you could save up money and eventually fund the infrastructure to have the energy collected in the ocean and then sold back to the energy grid on the mainland.
And Druk Holdings has been actively involved in managing Bhutan's Bitcoin assets, with recent wallet activity showing a flurry of deposits and withdrawals. According to Arkham Intelligence, which tracks on-chain analytics, Druk has engaged in significant transactions. In one instance, a whopping $25 million worth of BTC was transferred to their account. So, as the world increasingly shifts towards digital assets, Bhutan's embracing of Bitcoin mining reflects a broader trend among nations seeking alternative sources of income. Countries like El Salvador have adopted Bitcoin as a legal tender, while others are holding it as part of their sovereign wealth strategies. Bhutan, however, stands out for its eco-conscious approach, leveraging its natural resources to minimize the environmental impact of mining.
If we cut the price of energy to 1/100th the cost that it is right now, what would that do to the price of food, for example? Food that needed to be refrigerated, to be trucked, to grow. It would drop the price drastically because the input costs are much cheaper than they are. Well, what if you had robotics, self-driving vehicles, automation? The list goes on and on. If you were to accommodate all these technologies and the cost of energy was a fraction of what it would be, have you ever wondered why central bankers are beating the drum about climate change? Well, it all makes sense if you see energy output as goods and services.
Changes in payment systems. The fact that, you suddenly declare SWIFT is not okay for the Russians. They're forced to develop an alternative that has led the Chinese to develop their own alternative. And I'm pretty sure others are going to be either using the alternatives or developing their own. We have the possibilities enabled by central bank digital currencies, which also allows for different kinds of transactions and flows that we're not, I think, fully anticipating in terms of the implications that they could have for current financing, shall we say.
The Russian sanctions caused a lot of fear in the global markets, and this also caused a lot of fear with sovereigns. Sovereigns no longer trusted the G7 nations to control all of the cross-border payments, and this is why we saw adoption of the BRICS payments platform. I started this video off by saying, what if every crypto investor was wrong? What I mean by that is, what if we got the whole tribal nature of crypto wrong? There's no reason to compare one coin with the next. These are tools, and they're fit for different use cases. The U.S. government, as well as other governments, have given handouts to electric vehicle makers. This doesn't make sense because electric vehicle makers, what they're doing, they're taking energy that comes from oil and gas, it goes to the grid, and then charges an electronic vehicle. Not to mention they're using tractors and different types of equipment to pull metals, to pull lithium, to pull cobalt out of the ground, and then create batteries that then are again energized by oil and gas that goes through the energy grid.
Now, all of this, in a sense, will enable countries perhaps to do different kinds of regulation as well. I mean, I'm wondering, I'm just putting it out there, I don't know enough, and I think there are people in this room who know a lot more about it than me. Is it possible that these changes, combined with the technological changes that in the form of digital currencies, etc., will enable new forms of regulation that can be imposed by groups of countries, plurilaterally? I don't mean necessarily just one region. It doesn't have to be flour. It doesn't have to be group of Africa alone. It could be combinations of countries. It could be the non-G7 group in the G20 even. Or it could be BRICS Plus, which now includes all those horrible oil exporting countries and so on. So there are different possibilities, I think, emerging in terms of alternate financing arrangements, alternate trading arrangements that have been forced on people, which at the same time possibly allow new forms of regulation. So my basic point is we can't do anything we want without much more regulation of finance at every level. But maybe the potential for that regulation is now there in a way that wasn't before.
This was at a Bretton Woods conference, and this is called How Can the Bretton Woods Institutions Be Reformed? We have had an epic amount of debt added to the balance sheet, and this is historically how nations have collapsed. We live in the most peaceful time in history. I know that doesn't sound true, but it is true, and that's because of debt. You see, during the gold standard, when one country had more resources, that meant the other country had less resources, and this is how wars broke out. Eventually, the country that doesn't have anything goes to war with the country that has something and takes what they have. It was advantageous for the country that didn't have anything to be peaceful with everybody else because eventually they'll get a loan by the wealthier countries and now they get pulled out of. If energy costs were brought down to its lowest possible cost, it would have a very similar effect. The nation that leads in renewable energy will be the nation that leads the world. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you enjoy content like this, please consider joining my Ghost site, dmjr.ghost.io, or my Patreon.